Welcome to Champion Minded, the podcast for those who aim for excellence, not only in the sports arena, but in life. My name is Allistair and Ed, author, speaker, mindset and performance coach, and my goal is to help you unleash your unlimited potential and provide you with the tools to achieve greatness. Are you ready to become champion minded? Then let's do this.
Welcome to part 3 of this Mental Toughness Series with Allistair and Ed. In part 1, we looked at specifically about mental toughness. Part 2, we looked at how to build your confidence. And part 3 is all about mindfulness. Allistair, let's get straight to it. How do you define mindfulness?
Yeah, in simple terms, the most simple way is being in the present moment, like we are right now. There's nothing else that matters to me right now than this conversation that we're having. So really, it's about being in the moment. It's about being present, which is probably one of the most challenging things these days because of all the distractions we have and our cell phones and technology today. It's just, you're standing in the supermarket, you're just going through Twitter or whatever it may be. Instead of, mindfulness being, sometimes you can just take a time out and just be aware of where we are in this present moment or what's happening. For example, one of the best pictures I've ever seen that pretty much embodies what mindfulness is I don't know if you've seen, I think it's the Queen is on a parade and there's a crowd and there's a little old lady at the front and she's watching the Queen drive past, and every single person around her has their phone out taking a video or taking a photo. And for me, that is like probably the best picture. If you haven't seen it, go to Google. I don't know what you would put in, maybe lady, Queen parade presence, whatever it means. I don't know, but that is mindfulness. She was in that moment. She wasn't busy with her phone and taking a video. She was right there. And so many times, Ed, I've caught myself not being in the moment. In fact, I know there's a lot of athletes that have listened to this series, and thanks to everybody who's been sending in their feedback and comments, of course, with the hashtag Mental Toughness Series. But, one of the key things is being in the moment is that I tell athletes is, you're not thinking of the past, you're not thinking of the present, what's going to be happening, but you're in the moment. So for me, that's the best way I describe it. But I was doing a little bit of research just before we got onto this one. And Cambridge Dictionary defines mindfulness as the practice of being aware of your body, mind, and feelings in the present moment. So that pretty much sums it up.
Awesome. Great definition. Just with a sporting example, I know you're a keen tennis player, and I think tennis is a great sport when you could be a set down and you're like, well, that could be the time when we panic to how we're going to respond in the second set, I should say. And one metaphor I've learned from you is instead of focusing on the next set, it's all about focusing on the next point. So would you mind sharing or adding value to that sort of metaphor in the world of tennis, that sometimes instead of thinking too much ahead of winning the match, we just should be focusing on the present moment of the next point? That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. With regards to sports, and we'll go on to how that relates into life as well. I remember listening to commentary. I think it was the British Open or the PGA, and when Tiger Woods was playing when he was healthy. And somebody asked, what is it that makes Tiger Woods so good? And of course, there's so many things, that you can point to. But what the commentator said that really stuck with me when it comes to mindfulness and being present. He said that he's able to let go of the last stroke, putt, drive quicker than any golfer, because he's able to be in the moment on that next shot, or be it on the tee or whatever it may be. And, working closely with athletes, Ed, I think honestly is the number one challenge of every athlete is to stay in the moment, because it's not easy. You're thinking, how did I miss that shot? You're thinking in the past. I find myself doing it when I play tennis or when I play a sport is, you make a stupid error and you're still thinking about it. In fact, you're still thinking about it 2 games later and you're berating yourself. So the best athletes today are able to stay present and in the moment. So where does that translate to us when it comes to life, for example? Is having deeper conversations, is being present in class, for example, or in a meeting, for example, because it's so easy again for us to miss things, to be distracted. I was just talking about when you're not present, you're either in the past or you're in the future. So a lot of times in life, we create bigger problems than there is. We worry about things and so on that haven't even occurred yet. Instead of just being present and in the moment of where we are right now, we create a lot of problems in our mind. And that is not being present. That's about being, thinking about the future, for example. So just like we started this episode of what is mindfulness, it's being present, it's being right here, right now.
So here's just to put a curveball in. How do we control this mindfulness with our ego?
Yeah, very, very, very difficult. And that is the biggest challenge for all of us, is to be, it's a skill. Mindset is a skill. You've heard this before from me as well, Ed, and our listeners as well, is that it's something that has to be trained in terms of catching yourself being distracted or looking out the window or whatever it may be, instead of being here right now, for example. So it is a skill. It is something you have to be aware of. Now, and our listeners know, I love my sticky notes. So maybe you want to become more mindful. And I know we're going to get onto some strategies and ways to become more mindful in this episode. But, I always say, whatever it is that you're trying to create, a habit or build confidence, as we had in episode 2 as well, is write it down. Write down mindfulness or be mindful on a sticky note and put it in the car or put it in your office, wherever it may be, because it will remind you to be more mindful.
And just another point, and I mentioned this in episode 1 with mental toughness, of getting in the right frame of mind. We talked about attitude, but from mental toughness, there's the opposite of overtraining, of burnout. How can being more mindful support that element of not overworking or not burning out in what we do? And I don't mean just in sport, but it could be the work we do in business or in our day-to-day lives. I just want to touch on this point because I think in the world of mental health, mindfulness could be the solution in a way of being more present, as you've mentioned right from the start of this episode.
Ed, you're 100% there. And especially, we're living in an era of where mental health is coming to the fore and we're hearing more about it. But here's the thing, mental health has been around forever. Since mankind. I mean, so it's now just being more brought to the fore because we're seeing it in sports more. We're seeing it especially we've seen it in the last year and a half. In fact, I would say 80% of the work I've been doing with corporates and sports teams has been over mindfulness and mental health. And that is what they're wanting right now, more than strategy or team motivation or whatever it may be. It is this subject that we're talking about right now on mental health and mindfulness. So getting back to your question, there's there's two things that come to my mind. Self-awareness is that you're self-aware, is that you know how you're feeling, what you're thinking, you're more in touch with yourself. And that's where mindfulness can help. And then the second one is something I practice, is self-reflection. Of if I self-reflect on, am I doing too much? Am I nearing burnout? What are the signs? Irritability, not sleeping well, tiredness, being distracted. Maybe I'm heading for burnout, for example. So being mindful helps with so many things of if I can put it this way, of being in touch of where you are right moment and how you're feeling. So, I've experienced burnout at least 2 or 3 times at a very, very serious and critical level, leading to depression, one of those as well. And now I'm more equipped because of being more mindful of when I'm heading towards burnout or when I'm not feeling my best self. And we know that the highest performers, the best performers, are aware of their energy, they protect their energy, and that really comes back to mindfulness.
Absolutely. And I have to put my hand up as well. I've experienced this burnout element in my podcast journey for sure. And it's something I'm so much more awareness. Like it goes back to, as you say, the self-awareness. But just on that point, self-awareness, how have you implemented it in your lifestyle? Like, for example, self-talk. For me, when I overwork, I have that pep talk to myself to take a step back. Is that the same for you, out of interest, just from your experience on that point?
That's a perfect example you've given right now, is self-talk. Are you aware of your self-talk? What are you saying to yourself? What are you saying to yourself when you wake up in the morning? What are you saying to yourself when you make a mistake, be it in class or at work or on the sports field? The first people ask me, how do I become more positive? And I'm always saying is be aware of what you're saying to yourself. Catch yourself being negative first. That is self-awareness, is that you're aware of the things you're saying to yourself. Are they hurtful, or are they helpful? So we can see that mindfulness goes in so many areas of, how we feel, how we're going to perform, the energy we bring, all these things. It's almost like your car, for example. The what do you call it with all the dials?
Dashboard.
Your dashboard. Thank you. Couldn't find that word. It's almost like your dashboard, where you're aware of your fuel level, you're aware of your speed, you're aware of all these things. That you're being mindful there.
And just touching back on one point you said earlier, I think it's really important, distractions, because let's talk about social media specifically. There's so much content out there. You can have a motivational speaker going, work harder, do this. And then you have somebody going, chill out, calm down. Even people listen to this content, I'm just being truthful, like how we interpret mindfulness is different. I know it's being in the present with the definition, but related to your experience, how do you find that word balance of distractions, but also the content we consume, in when to work hard and when to sort of take a step back to make better progression later on in what we currently do in sport, in business, or the life we live?
Successful people are always very strategic of how they plan their day, of how they run their day. Now, my lessons through mindfulness and self-awareness of burning out have made me change what a day looks like, for example. So I carve out time for exercise. I carve out time for reading. I carve out time for mindfulness, for example. In fact, we have a lake here, and it takes about 20 minutes to walk around. And I don't take my phone. I don't do it every day, but when I always get back to the house, I always just feel calmer. I almost feel my creativity has come back in a way, just by that simple walk, by not having a cell phone with me or having distraction, for example, just being in quietness. Now, you can even do this sitting in the car instead of turning on the radio or whatever it is. Your commute to work can be a mindful time for you, for example, of just in silence. And this is something that most people fear, is their thoughts. Is being in silence. There always has to be something. There has to be a radio, a TV on in the background. They have to be on their phone. When in fact, if you just had 20 minutes a day of just quietness, I can promise you things will start to come out, maybe some pleasant, some not so pleasant, that will come up that probably that have been there for years, for example. So, it's so important that we carve out that time for mindfulness.
Out of interest, you've just mentioned another quick point there. What are the benefits you've seen by not being on your phone for that 20 minutes specifically?
I'll be the first one to put my hand up. It's not easy, because I'm wondering what I've missed, be it by email or phone calls or whatever it may be. But it's definitely helped with my energy, because I've switched off for 20 minutes. As you know, I like to take a nap as well during the day for 20 minutes, and I don't sleep. It can be just lying on the couch, or even, just relaxing with no electronics and just switching off the brain. I like to call it, for 20 minutes. And then, the amount of energy that gives me for the rest of the afternoon is incredible. In fact, just getting back to our previous point there, you asked for one or two examples on how I've created, the more mindfulness and more self-awareness is, I've taken my work email off my phone, and I've kept my personal email on my phone, for example, because what I was finding, Ed, is, I'm looking at my phone at 10:30 at night, and I work with people around the world. So Australia, it's daytime. I'm getting work messages, and I'm reading them at 10:30 at night, and then I'm getting into bed thinking about what my answer or what my reply is going to be to that email. And no wonder I'm not sleeping well. So that was one of the decisions I made, is that my work day will start, because I work for myself, obviously, so which can be a good and bad thing, and you're the same as well. But my work now starts at 8 a.m. and finishes at a certain time. Now, some days will be different because you have other things that are coming through. But that's just one example of me creating more energy for myself, creating more mindfulness for myself, more me time to take care of myself instead of just looking at emails at 10 o'clock at night and so on and so forth.
Just talking on time, because there could be some listeners going, Allistair, Ed, I can't find that 20 minutes. Or I want to put 20 minutes at lunch, but will I get the benefits later? So for example, as you know, in episode 1, I talked about my running schedule. I block out 12 till 1, my running time, and that's my priority. I do have my phone with me because I like to document my journey to people on social media, because people have been motivating me, and you get that sort of win-win. That's the only time I have the phone then. But the point I'm getting to is people say, well, that's an hour of my time. Will I get that time back? And from my experience, I do, because I actually work a bit longer, not burning myself out, but my energy is better, if that makes sense. So I just want your thoughts on carving out that time. There are benefits, maybe not in that hour of productivity, but later on in the day, whenever you fit that time in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, it's about making time and not trying to find time, because if you're trying to find time, you're not going to find it. There's always going to be something else to do or whatever. But, if you tell me that you have 20 minutes to scroll through Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or whatever else is going on, then, your priorities are somewhere else. They're on social media, for example, instead of carving out the 20 minutes of mindfulness. Like I said, even if it's just a walk around the block, and that's something that you do each morning for 20 minutes or in the evening, great. Then you're already on the path. Now, it's just like taking vitamins. When you take vitamins, you don't feel a difference all of a sudden, like these, I'm sorry to say, but these advertisements where, the person pops a multivitamin and he's jumping on the trampoline in 10 minutes time. No, it takes time. It takes time until you see the benefit, for example. So yeah, it's one of those things where, you got to invest in it. The best investment you can make is in yourself. And if you're telling me you don't have 20 minutes a day, you're lying, because President Obama used to take out half an hour during lunchtime to shoot basketball hoops at the back of the White House, for example. So if the president of the United States had time to do it, then you have time to do it. It's all, you said the big word there, Ed, priorities. What are your priorities? And if you're not putting yourself first, then you're not able to get the best out of yourself, and you won't be able to get the best out of people around you.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, I do want to talk about, you've mentioned some strategies. We talked about self-talk, talked about your sticky notes, which we mentioned in podcast 2 with building confidence. But there's one I want to talk about, gas. How has that supported you being more in the present moment in the morning?
Yeah, GAS stands for gratitude. When I wake up in the morning, I think of at least 2 things I'm grateful for. And that I've created that habit that I no longer need the sticky note next to my bed. When I wake up, I think about it. It's the best way to start your day. It really is the best way to start your day. Number 2 is appreciation, living your day with mindfulness, of being thankful for the person at the grocery store or the person that held the door open for you. These little things, there we go again, is the appreciation part, is that you're being mindful of people that are doing things for you throughout your day. And then the third one is self-reflection, of course, which we've spoken about. And I'm glad you brought up gas, because that really is around mindfulness, gratitude, appreciation, self-reflection in the evening of what you did well, or maybe what you didn't do well, for example.
Absolutely. Look, I hope people apply that gas phrase to your morning routine, your evening routine if you journal. But I feel like we're at a great stage now where I like to do a wrap up from these last 3 episodes. With number 1, we looked at what is mental toughness. Part 2 was about building confidence, and now we've just discussed the benefits of mindfulness. Do you want to just do the finish, Allistair, of those 3 sections, and reflecting now from what we've just done, how it can benefit your lifestyle, including my lifestyle, but most importantly, the listeners too?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ed. I've really, really enjoyed this series. And also, once again, thanks so much to everybody who's sent in some feedback and shared some things. I think what the important point here is that mental toughness, as we spoke about in episode 1, was not just about being fighting hard, being a Navy SEAL, UFC fighter, well, that guy's mental tough, etc. No, mental toughness is related to mental health as well. Is that for me, a mentally tough person is someone that has who can go through adversity, build grit, take on challenges. That's mental toughness. Mental toughness is also someone that's able to address their issues, their vulnerabilities, and we're talking about mental health as well. That's mental tough to me. There's this is why we wanted to do this series is, there's a misconception about what mental toughness is. We just think it's all about just grinding and being the tough person. It's not. People that are able to address their vulnerabilities, their limiting factors, their health issues, for example, are mentally tough. Those are mentally tough people. And then, of course, in the middle, we had building confidence, which, to be successful, whatever success is to you, you need confidence. You need the belief in yourself. And it starts with you. And in that series, which was a really, really good one, episode 2, if you haven't listened to it, check it out. We speak about self-image. We talk about self-talk, all those things that lead to your confidence. So I think you and I as well during this journey has seen how all three of these topics actually meshed together, that they come down to mentally tough people are confident in themselves, they're good and they're bad, their flaws and their strengths, and also able to address their vulnerabilities of things like mental health and mindfulness.
Awesome. Look, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please on Twitter, share your biggest takeaway with hashtag Mental Toughness Series. As always, Allistair, it's always a joy to interview you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed. I've really enjoyed this. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that one with Ed Bowers and myself. That was part 3 of our 3-part series on mental toughness. As Ed mentioned, please send in your feedback with the hashtag Mental Toughness Series. As always, this podcast is available on iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube, and via my website, allistairmccaw.com. Massive thanks to all of you who've left a review or rating on iTunes. I greatly appreciate that. Connect with me on social media. I'm on Twitter at Allistair McCaw, Facebook, Allistair McCaw page, and on Instagram, Be Champion Minded. As always, remember you were made for greatness. Now go do the work. Stay champion minded.